Hi, my name is Romans, and this is the second video in this series. We were talking about Agile Data Framework and how its purpose is to take the ORM concept and the query builder concept and just move it slightly bit together and create a product which have the benefits of both of these patterns. But most importantly, we need to make ORM and query friends again. And in this video, I will focus on the physical demo, so I will actually dive into the code. I will set it up inside this new folder over here. It's an empty folder for now. I'm going to do a simple project working with this database over here. The structure couldn't be simpler. We have ID, we have name, we have address, and in order to access it from my PHP application, I will be relying on two components. The first is called Agile Data, and I will install it using Composer. So if you don't know, Composer is a dependency manager for PHP. Allows you to install stuff from repositories, but also creates the autoloaders for you. The second thing I'll need is called SciShell, and its ability to interact with PHP objects in a very interactive way. So it's like an inspector for the browser. I will also have to do the modification for this file because I want Composer to automatically load the files for me. So essentially I'm saying, if you need to load any classes which weren't explicitly loaded or included, you will find them in a SRC folder. And I also need to create this folder as well as place my initial class in here. The class will be called client. It doesn't have to sound similar as in a database, because in Agile Data, when you define your classes, you have to think in terms of your business logic and not in terms of how they actually are located inside a database. Let's quickly look into this class. So it extends from the model, and I define the table of a client, and I'm also defining a couple of fields. If you used an ORM and you were under the impression that extending entity from something is going to slow you down, you'll have to remind that Agile Data is not the ORM. It uses different principles, so hold on with the assumptions and let me demonstrate how it works first. Okay, the other file I will need will be called console. And normally, when you write your application, you will obviously have your code inside your files. But because I'm doing the demonstration, I want only to establish the connection, and then all the code I'm kind of poking around would be down to the shell. So I'm executing the shell over here after only establishing the database connection. In here, I have credentials for my MySQL, and it's a usual PDO string, so it relies on the PDO connection. Okay, I have to run Composer install, so it remembers to look for my classes inside the SRC folder, and then finally I can run console PHP, and now I have the shell and I can work with things. First, let's look at the database we have created. The DB, it's actually figured out that it's a SQL, and it uses an adequate connection and adopts some of the parts of Agile Data. And next I'm creating a new client, and whenever I create a new client, I have to specify the database. Now at this point, I'd like to point out the first significant difference between Agile Data and typical ORM pattern. In ORM, an instantiated class represents a single row. In Agile Data, one class like that represents multiple records. So not necessarily all of them, but it represents a record set. In this scenario, these are all the clients from the client table. And I can work with this set first of all, such as I can export. So when I call export, it will go to the database, query the field it knows. So if it would be more fields in here, it wouldn't query them because I have only defined 2. And then it outputs to me in a readable format. Obviously, I could do some basic operations such as loading individual record like 2. Okay, and now we see that my model is loaded. I could do get name like this. I can update it and I can store it. The other option I can do is insert a new record. Let me add Adidas. Okay, it gave me the ID number 9. I can export it again. Let me load the record by name. So it looked it up now, and I could do. There's also array access supported, so I can do address. After which I'm going to save it back. Okay, and going to the database, you will see that the records have been updated in here as well. So that's the standard CRUD operations, which pretty much every ORM supports. Now let me start talking about how we are actually bridging the gap between models and the query builders. And the way how it's done is by actions. So a model has a special function called action. And when I invoke that, it gives me a new object, which is a query builder object. And I can do certain stuff with this. For example, I can add group by name, right? And you see that the query have actually been changed. I can add more fields. I can set other parameters on this. So going back to my chart, I have just demonstrated to you how entity can become a query, but it's a really small part of what Agile Data can do. And in my next video, I'm going to look into what are other possibilities and what are other coupling between queries and ORM components. So I hope you liked this video, and I'll see you very soon.